between the company and the union table, we had almost 160 years of service for the company. And he's like, that's a lot of years. And he went down and asked each of us, all six of us, one at a time, have you ever seen an employee terminated while on termination? And they were like, no. And one goes, once. And he goes, what? Dan Arlen? And he goes, yeah.
The facts, dates, and events presented in this video are from the members' best recollection and may not be fully accurate. This video is intended for entertainment purposes only. Always consult with your local union about your rights and duties at your workplace. The opinions shared on this video are our own and do not necessarily represent my employer's positions, strategies, or opinions. All views shared are protected under the National Labor Relations Act.
What is going on, everybody? So today I have a returning guest, Danny Arlen, out of Local 404 in Springfield, Massachusetts. And for any of you who may have missed it the last time, Danny was on the show about a month ago, and he covered his termination. But this man just didn't get terminated once. He's a two-timer. He got terminated twice. And so the first video covers his first termination, and this video right here is covering his second termination. So Danny, I'm just going to pass it on to you.
Hello, brothers and sisters. So after you watch the first video, if you haven't already, you'll see that all the craziness that led up to the panel in November. On November 2nd was the original termination panel case stemming from March 23rd of 2022. And the day after, 8 days later on the 10th, we got the arbitrator's written ruling. And on the 11th, I got a phone call saying the company wanted to have a meeting with me just to discuss my reinstatement on the 14th of November. And to no surprise, we walk into the meeting on the 14th, and the one and only thing they wanted to discuss was re-terminating me without ever reinstating me. And this time, the charges were even more gross. They were claiming workplace violence, supervisor harassment, and they proceeded to list the charges against me. The first thing they listed, which floored me, was back on March 23rd, when I was fired and I was walked out of the building, I turned to the supervisor that walked me off and I said, you know, you're going to be lucky to have a job when this is over. And they tried to twist that into workplace violence and harassment. And the problem with it was they were firing me again in November for something that had already been discussed at the November 2nd panel and ruled upon in the arbitrator's ruling. And I said to the labor manager, I said, you can't use that. And she's like, why not? I said, well, because it's already been arbitrated and ruled upon. She goes, no, it wasn't. I'm like, did you even read the ruling? Because it was a 7-page ruling and there was a whole page that talked about this sentence. So nonetheless, at panel, they still introduced it, and the arbitrator basically dismissed it as already being ruled upon. The original arbitrator ruled that it was borderline insubordinate, but you know, that I didn't say anything threatening in nature, and he wouldn't blame me for saying it after what they did to me. The other three things that they listed as was during the first week of August was the National Week of Action for the Teamsters, everybody knows, to bring awareness to the 1 year left in the contract and the upcoming issues that we're going to have in this contract. And my local was very busy with panel that week. So me and a friend, Lillian Zavotsky, decided to hold our own week of action at the 3 facilities that are in our local for UPS. We spent a lot of our time in Springfield, where I normally work, where this supervisor works, because it's our largest facility and the only 24-hour facility that we have. The 3 things they listed was on August 2nd, that when I saw Frank Benjamin come out and videotape my peaceful union activity, I held up a sign that said, I'm still here, and said, yeah, Frank, I'm still here. And that sign originally was intended for the members to say, even though I was terminated, I was there for them to support their, you know, upcoming fight with the contract. And they tried to twist that into harassment. And, you know, the panel asked the company, you know, do you really think holding up the sign says I'm still here and saying, Frank, I'm still here is actually a terminationable offense? And they said, well, no, but the totality of everything is what we're firing him for. And he said, oh, okay. And then they moved on to the second part. 2 days later, on August 4th, I was that day our rally was focused upon heat injuries and heat fatalities at UPS, and talking about our brother Chavez out of California, who died in the back of his truck. And so I had my bullhorn with me, and I was, making some chatter and whatever. But we were across the street on public property, not even on UPS property. And one of the complaints they listed in my termination was that I interrupted the PCM that morning. And the panel asked him, like, well, if he was interrupting your PCM, why don't you just shut the door? And they said, well, he should have known better. And he goes, you really think that's a terminationable offense to interrupt a PCM when he's not even an employee and he was on public property across the street? And they said yes. And he goes, oh, okay. And then the third thing was, in hindsight, this part was, I put myself in a bad situation, but I still didn't do anything wrong. On Friday, August 5th, it was over 96 degrees and quite humid that day. And I ran out of water that I'd brought to drink, and I needed to use the restroom. Well, the day previous, I had gotten a message from my business agent that the company was considering reducing my termination to a notice of term and letting me go back to work. So I had texted a supervisor that was inside to see if I could quietly come in and use the bathroom and fill my water bottle and then go back out. And he didn't respond. And a few minutes later, I saw him in the parking lot, just inside the fenced area, which is the public parking area for the customer counter. And so I walked up to the fence line and said, hey, is there any chance I could use the bathroom? And then I realized the guy that had fired me was standing there also. And he said, no, I can't let you use the bathroom. Hold on a minute. He went in the building. He was in there for about 30 seconds. He come back out with 2 bottles of water and a Gatorade for me, handed them to me. I said, oh, thank you. And he said, I need you to leave the property. And I said, no problem. I turned and I walked away. Well, at panel, he tried to twist it. And he said that when he was putting something in the back of his car, he had come out of his car and I was right in his face and that I scared him. So he ran in the building and called the labor manager and told her what was going on and asked her what he should do. And she told him not to call the cops and to give me some water. But yet she supposedly did all of that in 30 seconds because the video that the company then submitted as evidence shows that he was only in the building for 30 seconds. So it's kind of a stretch to think that he made a phone call, had this full conversation with the labor manager, got the water, got the Gatorade, and came back out. But here nor there, the best part about the video was he testifies that I was in his face, within a foot of his face, and scared the crap out of him, and right up at his car. Then they submit the video from the camera fixed to the UPS building on the day in question, and the video clearly shows that I never went within 20 feet of this supervisor, nor his vehicle. I barely walked into the fence line, had a verbal conversation, which you couldn't hear on the video, obviously. You see the supervisor lightly jog towards the building, go inside, and then the other supervisor, Mike, was standing there talking with me, and he was just chatting, friendly, nothing that I thought was going to cause a problem. And the other supervisor came back out of the building, handed me the water and the Gatorade, said, okay, now I need you to leave the property. And I said, no problem. I turned and I walked away. And that's exactly what the video shows. The only time I was within 20 feet of him was when he approached me with the water. And then he, so it was kind of odd that they testified to that and then turned around and submitted this video. The members of the Teamsters who were on the panel were absolutely fantastic. They hammered the company that 90% of, we were in there 6.5 hours, and the company was just throwing as much shit at the wall as they could and seeing what would stick. But it just made them look even worse because, I mean, they were introducing stuff from 5, 10, 15 years ago. The last time I was disciplined, it was over 15 years ago. They introduced an old 5-year-old thing that happened with a supervisor where he was arrested on car with me. And let's just say that the police charged him I was not charged with anything. Even the UPS's own investigation showed I didn't do anything wrong. And they even brought that supervisor in. They brought in literally every supervisor I've ever worked for to come in and testify about things from the past. And the arbitrator and the panel just kept saying, like, how is this relevant to this case? And how is this relevant to this case? And everything was just, you could tell that the panel and the arbitrator were frustrated with the amount of stuff that they were throwing, just try to make it look like I was a bad person. And it had little to nothing to do with this case at all. And so the day went very well. That happened on February 8th. We went to the panel for my second termination. And Tuesday, Valentine's Day, I got the written ruling from this case, and the arbitrator was adamant about the fact that the company didn't provide any evidence that I did anything wrong. He said that he found that I was credible in the sense that I didn't have any interaction with that supervisor from the day I was terminated all the way up until the week of action. And I haven't had any interaction with that supervisor after the week of action through panel. So he said, if he was harassing him, then why did it only happen during the week of action? And, I don't find that holding a sign saying I'm still here is harassment. I don't think holding a megaphone and bringing contract issues to light is a form of harassment. And he even said that he didn't believe that I went on property with any malfeasance on that Friday. And so he threw it all out, and he reordered the company to immediately reinstate me and put me back to work with full back pay and benefits. It was also discussed how that same order came down in the November ruling, and to date, I still have not been made whole for the original termination. The company deducted all kinds of stuff and said, oh, we're not paying this, we're not paying that. So they got hammered about that, this panel case, and it's actually going back to the original arbitrator. But every week that goes by, I'm still accumulating penalty pay because we filed grievances on 2 different things that they owe me penalty pay on. So they're bulking up that money too. So technically they have until the 24th to pay me for this one, but I'm not going to hold my breath that that's going to happen because they've been, nickel and diming it ever since November. So.
Well, the thing is that, I've been with the company for 24 years now, right? And I have never in my career seen somebody go to arbitration twice, which is crazy. Have you ever seen that in all the years you've been here?
No, and what was really funny was one of the guys on the panel from the union, he went down the line, the 3 people sitting at the company table and the 3 people sitting at the union table, and he asked their titles and how many years of service. And between the company and the union table, we had almost 160 years of service for the company. And he's like, that's a lot of years. And he went down and asked each of us, all 6 of us, one at a time, have you ever seen an employee terminated while on termination? And they were like, no. And one goes, once. And he goes, what? Dan Arlen? And he goes, yeah. So, like, prior to this, in 160 years of experience with this company, none of those 6 people, including myself, had ever seen anybody fired while on termination. And that was the big point that the panel members for the union kept hammering the company was, when they talked about the different things they were accusing me of, he goes, but this was was Dan Arlen an employee on that day? And they were like, no. Oh, okay. Well, so if he wasn't an employee, how do you think you could fire him? And if you thought you could fire him, why did you wait almost 100 days later on November 14th to issue termination for something that happened in August? What happened to timely discipline? And so they just hammered him with all that stuff. And they even punched themselves in the face because he asked me, goes, what, if you thought you could fire him, why didn't you do something in August? And the labor manager goes, because he wasn't an employee then. And he goes, exactly. So it was actually a little comical.
So Danny, when is your return to work day, and what do you expect? Are you expecting to get fired a 3rd time while on termination? This is like inception of termination,
Right. As of right now, the company's still pulling some baloney. I do have a return to work date of this coming Monday, February 20th. But again, they're continuing with the stuff, instead of just moving the supervisor out of the building, they're trying to make it so that I can't, because of a order that's in place, that I can't work in that facility right now. So they're trying to move me to a different facility 35 minutes away from where I live. And on top of it, I'm a feeder driver by bid, and they're forcing me to go into package because there's no feeder routes that don't go into the facility where that guy works. And so they're forcing me into package, which I haven't done in 2 years. So I'm guessing it's going to take me a while to get up to speed. But the other issue is the fact that this supervisor orchestrated this entire ordeal. I mean, he fired me on 3 things that turned out to be adamantly not true. 2 of the 3 things, their own reports that he withheld for 4.5 months, and it took the NLRB ordering them to turn over the reports to get those reports. And that report clearly showed that I didn't do 2 of the 3 things they accused me of in the original thing, and that everything that I had said at the local level hearing was absolutely true. And the third thing of stealing time and adding miles, they never even submitted evidence. And when we went to panel in November, the panel was like, excuse me, but you have in here that he added miles and stole time, but did you add any evidence today that shows that? And they said no. And he goes, are we just supposed to take your word for that? And they said yes. So like, it was not only were 2 of the things proven not true, but the other one, not only did they not submit evidence, but one of the reports that I had requested and he withheld, they claimed was only in the system for 30 days, so they never turned it over. So essentially they had destroyed evidence. So this guy made up charges, withheld evidence, destroyed evidence, then kept me out of work through all that time. Then they retaliate against me after winning the first arbitration and try to create more trouble and keep me out another 3 months. So I was out, when I go back to work, it'll be 3 days shy of 11 months that I've been out of work. And this guy gets to stay in his facility where he's working, and I'm being moved to another facility and not allowed to work in the feeder department, and I'm being forced back into package because of his bad behavior. So let's just say this story is not over. There are going to be more grievances. I am exploring all my legal options, through the NLRB as well as possible civil stuff. So this is far from over. I know when I go back to work, I'm going to be a target. So, I'm going to do everything exactly by the book, take my breaks when I'm supposed to, take my lunch when I'm supposed to, call in, early and often that I'm in trouble, whatever I need to do the job exactly the way it's done. So that I give them because I'm really good at OJS rides. When they ride me, I know exactly what I'm supposed to do. I don't give them anything to hang me with. And I'm going to do the same thing now. Just going to go about my business and do my job and not worry about it. And I'll let the legal system and the NLRB and the grievance system take care of the troubles for me.
First of all, thank you so much for coming on the channel, sharing your story, letting all these new drivers and veterans know your story. Is there any shout outs you want to give before we close this out?
Yeah, so I guess I would like to leave everybody with this. First, I'd like to give a little bit of advice and then give a shout out. But the personal advice would be, you guys need to remember that the company's not your friend. And, doing stuff that's against the contract, like not taking a lunch, not taking your breaks, things like that, it's eventually going to get you. I understand we work long days, but you know what? Everybody that's working their lunch right now and everybody that's working their breaks right now is part of the reason why so many Teamsters are being laid off at the moment. There's not enough work to go around, but if everybody was taking their lunches and breaks, some of those jobs wouldn't be lost. They'd still be working. So that's one thing. Second of all is always, watch your back. Just, do the job the way it's supposed to be done. I know there's shorter ways to do it, but eventually you're going to get caught. Eventually it's going to cause you problems. And especially if you're not liked by the company, it's going to come back and bite you. So just watch your backs and, just work smart. We're hardworking Teamsters. We get paid very well, and we should just, put our nose to the grindstone. But as far as shout outs, I really would love to tell all the members across the country and Canada who have reached out to me over the last 11 months. Even just since the announcement on Valentine's Day of my reinstatement for the second time, the hundreds and hundreds of messages and emails that I've received from Teamsters all over the country and Canada in support, telling me that I inspired them, which is not why I did this. I did what was right because I'm not going to let the company push me around for something I didn't do. If I did anything wrong, I would have taken my lickings, but I knew I didn't do anything wrong and I stood my ground. And I will say that it took a toll on me personally, both financially. There was a round of depression that I had to fight off, and but I got to tell you, it was easy to do with the strength of the Teamsters behind me, the support message I was getting. When money really got tight towards the end in November, Kilmurray and Kerwood came through and decided to put together a GoFundMe page for me. The hundreds of people who have donated money to that has been incredible. It's been moving and touching and humbling. I'm in everybody's debt, and I forever stand by any brother and sister that needs something in return from me. So I just want to thank everybody for all the support and messages. It was absolutely strengthening my resolve.
Awesome. And for anybody who may have missed it, the previous episode, I'll put it in the link down in the description. Danny, thank you so much for coming on. Add Danny on Facebook if you haven't done so already.
Absolutely.
So, all right, brother. Be good. Hopefully we'll see you on again. Maybe we can have an episode where we can help educate the membership instead of going down this road.
I have some inspirations of possibly starting my own podcast. So I'm sure if that comes to fruition, I'll be back on to get everybody on board for that as well.
We'll definitely let everybody know. If you start your own podcast, we'll keep everybody posted where they can reach you and where they can hear from you. All right, brother.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you. Love you.